First and foremost, I think the clearest mention and win for our community was the specific reference to the university status that is imminent for Red Deer College. There was specific mention of Red Deer in regards to that particular point. So obviously that's a clear win for our community in terms of advanced education opportunities for Red Deer and region. Areas that, from the city's perspective, hold potential for Red Deer and of which we will be looking for further detail to identify local impacts, and particularly in watching the provincial budget, which will no doubt be forthcoming, that we'll be watching for, is number one, the diversification mentions of the economy, particularly in the oil and gas sector. Given Red Deer's strong connection to oil and gas industry and the trickle-down effects that has for our housing market, and obviously directly with respect to employment, we'll be watching that closely. And in particular, looking at the provisions of Bill 1 and how that will support oil and gas industry locally, and the potential that it may hold in terms of expanded pipeline capacity with that. Other areas that we think hold potential in terms of having local impact that we'll be watching for in terms of any specific releases that the provincial government gives, and as well in the budget, are in terms of this very specific reference to urban Aboriginal housing and the overall commitment to truth and reconciliation. Obviously, given affordable housing shortages in the community and the city's commitment to truth and reconciliation, I think that this is one area that will have direct potential for Red Deer. The other area that there was acknowledgement of is in terms of the opioid crisis. There was mention in the throne speech that actually specifically identified the 4 pillars approach. And our conversations over the last year with the provincial government have been focused predominantly on the harms reduction pillar. The throne speech did, however, acknowledge the 4 pillars, which is consistent with the Red Deer's drug and alcohol strategy. And those 4 pillars of prevention, treatment, harm reduction, and enforcement were also mentioned. So we'll be looking for further details in terms of how that will roll out and the potential that has for Red Deer. The other area that we'll be looking for specific detail were around major initiatives to combat crime and in the interest of public safety. There was a lot of reference to rural Alberta. It's not clear at this point whether from a budget allocation perspective if they're counting Red Deer among rural. Sometimes in grant definitions, Red Deer is included in that, and then other times it means rural municipalities. So that was not clear yesterday. However, we know that crime certainly knows no boundaries, and the efforts of our regional task force that we have in partnership with neighboring municipalities have certainly proven that over the last year in particular. So that is one area that holds potential for our region. There was no specific mention of municipalities with respect to the municipal sustainability initiative or its replacement. There was no specific mention of the fact that community building is province building. There's been points made regarding this fact in previous announcements, and this is a bit of a departure from that. So we will be watching the budget for changes in MSI. In the federal budget, the federal government committed to 75% revenue sharing on cannabis. Noting, and that money will flow through the provincial government. And so we will be watching the budget closely for how the provincial government intends to allocate that to municipalities. There was some reference to healthcare investment, albeit that investment was notably in other cities in the community. We know that this is a priority for the citizens of Red Deer and region, and so we will be watching for their, even though there was no specific mention made in the throne speech, we will be watching the budget closely in terms of how the government proposes to attend to the infrastructure and programming needs at the Red Deer Regional Hospital.
It clearly is pointing towards recovery. So there are some positive initiatives that are looking forward to. The focus on diversification is obviously very, very important, and I think that that's especially so here in this region. And I'm particularly, of course, impressed about the decision to move forward at the college on a path towards university status over probably 3 years. And I think that particularly that's probably the single most important economic step for this community that we've seen in some time. It will have lasting impact, long-term impact, and I think it's a very important decision. So to see that in this throne speech is something that we certainly commend the government for, because it is absolutely vital that as a community we can grow and keep educate our people here in this location. We have the issues of the MSI. We currently get over 20 million a year on the capital front and 700,000 a year on the operating front from that grant program, and if there is reductions in it, it will impact our capital plan and the facilities that we have planned over the next number of years. So we, of course, hope that there will not be, but that's something we're watching closely. We're watching closely, as the Mayor indicated, the revenue stream for cannabis, because obviously a number of those costs will fall locally.